Hello, I'm Aaron, and welcome to Aspiring Filmmaker. A while ago, I did a post on time-lapse photography in filmmaking, and I talked about a time I used the Canon 60D with a EOS utility while plugged into my camera, and a lot of people have wondered how I did it, so I thought I'd do a tutorial. First thing you do is open up EOS utility on your computer and plug your camera into your computer with the USB cord. And if it's plugged in right, you'll see that it comes up here with all the settings of your camera, the shutter speed, iris, ISO, and everything. You're going to want to click down there where it says Live View Shoot, and if you click there, that's going to be able to show you what your camera sees. So this is what my camera is seeing right now, just inside of my apartment. And you can adjust the white balance, make sure it's all in focus. I've already set the white balance here, and so you'll just close it. Just double check that you have your shutter speed right, your ISO right, and up here you see where it'll tell you whether it's an autofocus or manual focus. You want to make sure that it's in manual focus. I did this video on autofocus, and you can see that the video, every single picture, the camera is trying to focus, and it gets a really bad looking picture. So make sure you keep it on manual, and you'll get good. Now, if you click on that folder button, you'll be able to tell where it's going to save the pictures directly onto your computer. So I have a folder on my desktop named time-lapse. Then you click on the stopwatch there, and right there you kind of say what you want and how long you want it for. The bare minimum is 5 seconds. Okay, so you'll hit start, and you'll see that every 5 seconds is taking a picture. Okay, so let's see what it looks like when we're done. Okay, so right here we just took our 72 pictures, and it brings it up here in the Digital Photo Professional. You have all 72 pictures, but we want to make a time lapse out of this. Okay, so you're going to open up a program called Pixa. You can download it for free from Google, and it's just a very basic photo editing software. But it works great because it gets time lapse photos pretty easily. So I'm going to open it up here. I already have it open. Now you're going to click on Library, and you're going to find out where you saved your files. And so remember, I saved mine on the desktop under a folder called time-lapse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the files here. And I'm going to go down and click on the movie icon. Now, usually this brings it up into kind of a slideshow that people can watch, but you can change that. Now up here, instead of having cut, I changed the transition style to time-lapse. And I made sure to change my the dimensions to 1080. Now, if you're just doing this for the web and you want a smaller file, and if you're doing this for the web and you just want a smaller file size, I would just do 720. It just kind of depends on what you want. And so this plays through every single frame, every single photo that was taken, and it plays it back at 1/24th of a second, or 24 frames a second. You can adjust that up here, bringing it down to 1/12th of a second, so you kind of get a slower time lapse, and it just kind of depends on what your end result is, what you want. And then all you do after you take a look at it, make sure everything looks how you want, you'll just go down and click where it says Create Movie. Pretty simple. Now another way you can do it is bringing everything into Final Cut. That takes a little bit longer, but you have a lot more control over the actual file size. And if you notice, when it was 1920 by 1080, you had those black bars on the side. But in order to do that is you need to convert all these images into JPEGs. Final Cut doesn't read raw camera files. And so all you do is bring them into Adobe Bridge and select all of them. And if you click on that little icon in the top, it'll bring up the editing. Make sure on the left bar you make sure to click select all. And if you want, you can adjust all images the same. You can add a little fill light to get a little more light in there. You can adjust the contrast by changing the curve to a strong contrast. A lot of this is going to depend on how the image looks and your desired result. It's always easier to make sure you white balance, but if you can, it's always easier to white balance first, but if you didn't, you can always just adjust them here. So you're going to select all and go into Save Images. You're going to want to create a new folder just to make sure you can separate the two. And so I label it time-lapse JPEG, and try and keep them up at the highest quality possible, and you'll just hit save, and that's going to take a while. So after it's done, there's one more step you need to do before bringing it into Final Cut. So what that is, you're going to take those JPEG files, just bring them back into Bridge and go up to Tools and Batch Rename after selecting all of them. Change the presets to default. And what we want to do is we want it so we have that sequence number. So that means each of those is going to start following that certain number. So we'll have the sequence number starting at 1. It'll be 4 digits and it'll build itself up. Label it what you want. I'm calling mine time lapse, and hit rename. Now if we go to the folder, we double click, then we can see that each of these are having the 4 digits starting at 1. Okay, so now we're going to open up Final Cut. We're going to go to User Preferences, and we're going to click on Editing. Now where it says Still Freeze Duration, we want to change that to 1 frame. So to do that, we use the semicolon 01. And the reason why we do that is every time we bring it in, it's then going to be able to have each picture be that 1 frame. Okay, so now you're going to just import the folder of the time-lapse JPEG folder. And in the browser, you're going to open that up. Now, because you sent it to just 1 frame, when you bring it in, it's only going to be that 1 frame. So you're going to just select all of them and just drag them into the timeline. You'll see here that we now have our time-lapse. But the problem we have is we have the 2 black bars on the side just because the camera doesn't natively take a 16:9 image. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to export using QuickTime conversion. We're going to convert this into something that can natively read, so we can then just have this one complete clip. So I'm labeling mine time-lapse_AIC to stand for Apple Intermediate Codec. If you're using Final Cut Pro, Apple ProRes 422 works great, but I'm using Express for this, so Apple Intermediate Codec is what it'll read. And so you'll make your settings, get them as big as you want. 1920 by 1080 works for me. So you'll click save, and your film will start exporting. And because this is just 3 seconds, it really shouldn't take that long. Okay, so now we have our clip done, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new sequence, and I'm going to import that clip that I just made in Apple Intermediate Codec. So I'll just go to Files, and I saved it on the desktop. And it's right there. So now all I have to do is bring it into the Finder, and I'll make sure that the settings of the sequence match that clip. And all I have to do is double click it to bring it in the viewer, and then adjust the motion, adjust the zoom so it's about 135. So then I can just move the image around to kind of where I want it. So I want that chair kind of in that lower third, but I don't want the right black bar showing, so I'll just get that, and there we go. And now the great thing about this is because it's one single clip, we can add any effect we want. So I mean, if you wanted to add color correction to it, if something happened with the color, instead you can do this. So you'll just export it using QuickTime conversion. I like to use H.264 because I'm exporting for the web. And then you'll just hit save. Well, this has been a tutorial by Aspiring Filmmaker. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment below. Make sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And stay tuned for more tutorials.